Okay, well, welcome back everybody. This is Vince at Tac Ops for Life, and today I wanted to kind of go over how I've been preparing for competition. As many of you know, I'm a competitive shooter and also instructor, and recently I've been trying to test out my Walther Q5 steel frame competition pistol, kind of putting it through the paces in the field, and also been looking at features of this particular pistol that make it a very good competitive pistol right out of the box. Pros and cons, we'll be looking at that, and what we can do to actually make it even better. So with that, we can get started. I actually wanted to break this up into two videos. The first was primarily to look at the pistol itself and the features, and the second was primarily to look at the accessories associated with this pistol for competition. Race holsters, my competition belt rig, mag pouches, and things of that nature. So that kind of will be in an ensuing video. So bear with me here, and if you like the content, please like and subscribe. It's free and it helps us grow the channel. We really appreciate your patronage. So let's get started. So here's my Walther Q5 steel frame. As the name implies, this is an all steel frame pistol, which means it has a steel frame slide upper and a steel frame itself. Because it's all steel, it's much heavier than the polymer version of this pistol, and I believe it's about twice as heavy, which is a pro, obviously. With heavier weight or with more weight, it helps control recoil, or there's less felt recoil. Other features which I like for competition for this particular pistol, if you notice, there's an elongated beaver tail here, and what that allows you to do is it allows me to grip the gun right behind the beaver tail as high as I can, the arch of my hand right here, to fit right underneath the beaver tail, and what that's going to do is help me control recoil as the gun reciprocates back and forth, and the muzzle rises. So this is a really handy feature to have in competition pistol, the elongated beaver tail. The other thing that it does do for you is the beaver tail will actually protect your hand, or the arch of your hand, from the slide moving back and forth. So if you see some competition shooters that don't have this beaver tail, they basically put their, if you have a large enough hand, their web of their hand essentially behind the slide when they're gripping the pistol. And when you do that, your slide can go back and forth and rub against the web of your hand. You could possibly get injured if you're not careful. So beaver tail is helpful to protect your hand, but also to help you manage recoil. Other features that you see almost immediately from this gun is the interchangeable grip. Most competition pistols have that. In this particular pistol, the grip panel is all one piece, so you have two screws on this side, two screws on the other side that you can basically interchange the grip. For me in particular, because I have smaller hands, I prefer a much narrower grip. If you notice, there's a little bit of a swell here on the grip itself, and that swell kind of increases the circumference of the grip. So for me to grip the pistol, I can grip it just fine the way it is, but I would prefer a smaller, narrow grip, which is something I most likely will get. For me, my go-to vendors, Lock Grips, they make different colors, different textures for this particular pistol. So I'm most likely to get a narrow grip. The reason why I want to do that is there's a couple of reasons. One, I have a smaller hand. I really want to have the circumference smaller so I can really grip it with my support hand and my firing hand. But also, if you notice, in competition, I do have to change the mags fairly quickly on the move. And when the grip is too large, I can't easily change the mag with one motion. If you notice the magazine release buttons right here, for me to run and gun, so to speak, I have to basically, try to do this in one fell swoop and trying to change magazines. Notice that the grip is quite large, and so I can't easily depress the magazine release button without changing my grip temporarily and then allowing me to press the magazine release. So I want to be able to get a smaller grip so I can get my hand wrapped better around it so I can reach the magazine release button a little bit better. But I also want to use this little device, which is a magazine release lever, an extended one. And what that's going to do is extend the magazine release lever a little bit further out than this particular lever, and that's going to allow me to then, like I mentioned, press the magazine release with one motion, which saves me time in competition. Other features that you notice is the trigger. This trigger is not a stock trigger. It is a custom trigger. The stock trigger that comes with the OEM pistol is actually a curved trigger blue. The trigger pull weight is about 5.6 pounds. This particular trigger is my preferred trigger. It's a flat face trigger with a trigger shoe safety, passive safety, and it's about a 3.8 pound trigger pull. So much lighter, again, easier, not easier, but faster for repetitive shooting and for competition shooting. It is a low travel, and I like this trigger a lot. I've tested it in my PDP, my Walther Performance Duty pistol, which is my typical competition pistol. And so it's a really, really, really nice trigger. It has a nice tactile feel to it. When you reset it, very low travel, as you can see here. And this trigger shoe is a passive safety, so theoretically, if I depress the trigger and I don't depress the trigger shoe all the way down, it should not go bang. So again, lighter trigger means faster follow-up shots and quicker on target. Let's see, other features that I like about this particular pistol for competition is the elongated lever, slide lever stop here. Most ones are fairly short, and so when you're competing and trying to change magazines real quickly, especially in competition, I'm usually in a desert area, it's really hot, my hands are sweaty, and so when I'm trying to change magazines, I close my slide, let's say from an empty magazine, I press this lever, and sometimes my hand slips just because it's sweaty and I'm doing this fairly quickly. So when you have an elongated lever like this is, it's much easier because you have more torque, more leverage, and so you can actually depress this fairly easily, right? And you can see I don't have to go very far to close the slide. So again, this helps me with faster mag changes. All right, so you have that feature as well. Let's talk about the slide a little bit, and you probably noticed this already. This is a 5-inch barrel. This comes chambered in 9mm. So the 5-inch barrel, because it's longer, it's going to make the gun more accurate as opposed to a 3.5-inch or a smaller barrel or a smaller length barrel. Other features that help with competition are these slots here that you see on the slide, and these are called lightning cuts. You see them here on the slide, on both sides of the slide and right on top. This particular opening happens to be where the front sight was, and I took that off primarily because I have a green dot right here, and I wanted an unobstructed view when I'm shooting in competition. So I'll talk about the green dot in a bit. But let's talk about lightning cuts and what they're for, what they do. So a lightning cut basically reduces the mass of the slide, and because you have less mass here, so when you're shooting very rapidly, the slide's going to reciprocate back and forth very quickly. But because I have a lighter slide, it's going to be able to do that faster, which means I'm going to be able to do faster follow-up shots because my slide is lighter. So that's what a lightning cut here does. It helps with the slide reciprocation. It does it much quicker, and so you'll be able to shoot faster follow-up shots. The other thing that the lightning cut does is it protects your barrel. Not protects it, but actually cools your barrel a lot quicker because the gases, the hot gases will then, or the heat from the barrel will then escape through these openings here. One thing that I'd like to investigate, and I have already, that could possibly make this gun even better than it already is for a competition, and that is porting the barrel. Porting the barrel right here near the muzzle. Basically, we would then put 2 holes in the barrel at the top near the muzzle that would match the lightning cut openings, and what that's going to do is when you port a barrel, it allows the heat from the barrel to dissipate upwards because there's holes here in your barrel. Right now the barrel's not ported. So if you put ported barrel here, it's going to allow the heat to dissipate upwards. So then when you're shooting, what's going to happen is the gun's going to come back and recoil. Instead of recoiling at this angle, it's going to recoil fairly flat. And the reason why it's going to do that is because the gases are escaping now vertically through the ported barrel, which is then going to put a downward force on your pistol. So the gases escape here, and a downward force is going to come from the gases escaping to keep your barrel fairly flat, which is what we call flatter shooting, faster follow-up shots. So that's one thing you can do if you like. So you can port this barrel to make it a little faster. Jarvis Customs is a vendor that I worked with in the past. They do make ported barrels for this particular style of pistol, And like I mentioned before, that might be a nice addition if you want to go that route. Let's talk about the red dot, and most of you are familiar with that. Most of my competition pistols have red dots on them. There was a front sight which I took off. There was a rear sight which I replaced with the optic plate and the red dot. In my particular case, I chose a green dot because it's easier on my eyes, it's easier to see during the day. I chose this particular Holosun HE507 comp green dot for this particular pistol, primarily because of the very large viewing window, which you can see here. It's extremely large viewing window, which is nice when you're shooting in competition and you're trying to acquire your targets very quickly. I like this dot a lot for competition. This dot is actually made for competition, thus the name, the model of HE507C comp, C-O-M-P, for competition. There's like, I believe, 9 reticles in here. 2 are night sights and 7 are daytime reticles, and it goes from the dot to the MOA circle, different sizes. So it's really, really convenient if you like different options with your displays and reticles. This is the dot for you. All right. Other features, of course, like a typical 9mm pistol, there is a Picatinny rail, of course. You can attach any light optics to it. One thing that you might want to consider, because I noticed that most of the weight is coming from the back end, the strap, the back of the pistol, and putting more weight in the front would also help with recoil management. So if you have a Kydex holster or a plastic holster, you might want to consider like a Surefire HL high lumens 1000 lumen light attached to this particular pistol, because that will add additional weight and balance the weight of the pistol in the front with the weight in the back. Other things internally that I've done with this particular pistol that makes it that helps recoil management or helps manage the recoil is there's a recoil spring here that comes with the pistol. This is a stock recoil spring. It's called a stock recoil spring and guide rod, and this basically guides your slide back and forth. It sits right about here. This is the stock recoil spring and guide rod, but I've replaced it with another one made by Walther called a tungsten guide rod and recoil spring, and it's exactly the same length as this particular guide rod, but it's 4 times heavier. You can't see that by looking at it, but here's the steel version of it, but the tungsten version is the same length that sits here. It's 4 times heavier. And what that's going to do, of course, is to dampen the recoil, because you have more weight now in the front of your pistol. So it's going to dampen the muzzle rise. So I've already done that, so I've got a heavier tungsten recoil guide rod in here already, and that's going to dampen the recoil for sure. Like I said, there's a lot of pros with this particular pistol. I like it a lot. I've been able to test it in the field. One of the things that I'd say, if we let's look at cons, there's not too many cons of this particular pistol, but one con that I saw was just the length of this particular grip is a little bit shorter than most competition pistols for me. If you notice the grip, the length of the grip is small. And if I compare that to my PDP Walther pistol, which is right here, this is my normal Walther PDP pistol that I use for competition. Notice the grip length is much longer. So if I compare the 2 grip lengths, you'll see back to back that the Q5 pistol is shorter. And because it's shorter, I don't have enough surface area here on my support hand right here. Especially for me, so most of my recoil management is coming from my left hand. I don't have enough of a length here to put my support hand, especially these fingers on my dominant hand, and then my pinky on my support hand. And so the fix for that, I wouldn't say a fix, but one solution is to put the magazine that comes with, this is the standard magazine right here that comes with the Walther Q5. I've actually added a base plate here that's made out of brass and makes it heavier so it drops when you do a mag change. Here's another magazine that came with the Q5 standard magazine. I've changed the base pad to a grip handle, and what that's going to do is give me a little bit more length on the bottom of the grip, so that when I'm gripping it, you notice my pinky now has a resting place so I can put more torque on it when I'm trying to grip the pistol and trying to control the recoil. So that's one quick fix that I've done, is again use the standard mags but then add a base plate with a grip handle on it. So that's my only negative, so to speak, or con I would say, is that the grip handle is a little bit shorter than my typical competition pistol, especially my Walther PDP. It would have been ideal. Here's my Walther PDP, my competition pistol now, if they had taken this grip and put it on this pistol. I've taken the PDP grip, performance duty pistol grip, and put it on this Walther. It would have been an ideal, probably optimal situation. But anyways, if Walther's listening, hopefully they're listening, they can look at that in the future. So that's probably the only con that I came up with for me personally, is the grip was a little bit too short for me. Let's see. Other things you can do besides putting, the magazine with the grip, you can obviously put a mag well here if you like. You can replace this with a mag well, and that's going to allow you to insert the magazines a little bit easier. And then that mag well is going to be flared, so you're going to have a little bit more surface area for your support hand or your pinky when you're gripping the pistol. So that's another thing I would probably put on this pistol, is either a mag well for fast mag changes as well, to make this a little bit easier to change mags during competition. So those are the features I think are really good with this pistol that make it competition ready. Let's talk about two things I always look for in a competition pistol. One is what makes it faster, what features make this a faster shooting pistol. Another criteria is obviously accuracy. How accurate is it? Well, with a 5-inch barrel, it is going to be accurate. I can tell you I've tested this, and I'll show you here in the video here, with a USPSA target, and I was about 22 yards away, shooting at speed, on the move, at a USPSA target, hitting the A zone about 98% of the time. I hit a couple of Charlies, a couple of C shots, but 98% of the shots fell in the A zone. The groupings were very tight. They were probably about, if you'll see it on the video, was about less than half an inch at 20 yards, 22 yards. And so very happy with the accuracy of the gun, shooting at speed, just because of the metal frame, the weight, it really, when you're shooting it, it's fairly flat. You don't see this angle of muzzle rise that you typically do in a polymer frame gun. So it was very accurate, very little, less muzzle rise for sure, and tight groupings with the pistol. So I also tried different grains of 9mm just to make sure the pistol would cycle properly. These include 9mm in 115 grain, 124 grain, 135 grain, 147, 150 grain. And so they all shot very reliably, no issues with failures to feed. In particular, when you're shooting competitions, I usually shoot the heavier grain pistols because they're heavier, so it dampens the recoil. There's not as much felt recoil, but also because it's lower velocity than a lighter grain projectile, it's easier to control. So typically that's what I do for competition shooting. Let's see. Other things I would say that I could possibly do if I wanted to make this even better. I don't think there's a whole lot I would do other than you can basically just take this out of the box. I mean, you'll be fine with what you have, but because I have smaller hands, like I mentioned, I'm gonna change the grip to a smaller panel or a thinner panel. For me personally, I'm gonna add the magazine grip handle here for the bottom because it's gonna allow me to have more torque and grip surface on my support hand. So those are the things I would do for now to make this a very accurate pistol. But for overall, I'm very happy with the pistol. I've been able to field test it. I've been shooting it at speed at both steel targets and USPSA paper targets. It was very accurate, tight groupings. Shooting heavier grain ammo, no problem knocking down steel targets the first time. And so very happy with it. And well, I think that should do it for me. I think that would As far as a rating, I'll summarize the pros and cons at the end of the video, but I would give it probably a 4.5 out of 5. I mean, I don't do that very often, but this is a really, really good out-of-the-box pistol. Besides it being very functional and very accurate, it also is aesthetically very pleasing. It's got very sleek lines from Walther. As you can see, it's a beautifully made pistol, well built on all sides and all aspects of the pistol itself. So anyways, hope you like this review, and like I said, I'll put some more information on my second video about accessories that go with this competition pistol, which include my belt rig, my competition belt, and my mag pouches, and also a new race holster, which I'm going to be using with the pistol. So I hope you liked the video. If you want more information, feel free to comment, like, and ask me any questions that you have. And I'll see you next time for the second video, ensuing video about the Walther Q5 steel frame. Thank you very much, and thank you for your patronage, and see you on the flip side. Again, train hard, train smart, and train for life. Thank you.